Aqueducts didn't just change Rome, they changed cities forever. The first major aqueduct, Aqua Appia, was completed in 312 BCE, under the censor, Appius Claudius Caecus. It stretched 16.4 kilometers and ran mostly underground, but that was just the beginning. By the peak of the empire, Rome had 11 aqueduct systems carrying over 1 million cubic meters of water into the city every day. These channels brought clean water to public baths, fountains, and private homes, some of which were several stories high. The engineering was precise. Romans used a gradient of just 1 in 4,800 to maintain steady flow. Gravity did the work. The Ponte du Gard in modern France, built around 4260 CE, still stands as a three-tiered stone aqueduct and a monument to precision. Today's water infrastructure still relies on the same principles: slope, pressure, and steady flow, just with PVC pipes and water towers instead of volcanic stone. Concrete was Rome's secret weapon. While the Greeks built in marble, Rome used opus cementitium, a blend of volcanic ash, lime, water, and stones. It could set underwater. That meant ports, piers, and bridges could be built with speed and strength. In 126 CE, Emperor Hadrian completed the Pantheon, whose unreinforced concrete dome, -43.3 meters wide, remains the largest in the world. The secret pozzolana ash from the Bay of Naples. Even more fascinating, Roman concrete doesn't degrade. It gets stronger over time. Modern engineers studying Roman seawalls found that minerals form inside the cracks, healing the structure naturally. Compared to today's concrete, which often crumbles within 50 years, Rome was building for eternity, or at least longer than most democracies last. Roman roads were a tool of conquest and control. By the early 4th century CE, the empire had built over 400,000 kilometers of roads, and around 80,000 kilometers of those were paved in stone. These routes stitched together major cities, ports, and distant frontiers, allowing troops, merchants, and messengers to move faster than ever before. The Via Appia, begun in 312 BCE, stretched 563 kilometers from Rome to Brindisi. It wasn't just a road, it was a statement of Roman reach. Parts of it are still walkable today, and the famous saying, "all roads lead to Rome," wasn't poetic exaggeration. It was logistical reality. Distances across the empire were measured from the Miliarium Aureum, a golden milestone in the Roman Forum. Roman roads weren't haphazard. Engineers used surveying tools like the groma, followed direct routes, and built in layers: sand, gravel, crushed stones, and heavy paving slabs, all slightly arched to drain rainwater. The result? Roads that endured for 2,000 years. Today, we drive on asphalt and concrete, but Europe's highway network still echoes the logic of Roman design. Even our calendar has Roman roots. In 45 BCE, Julius Caesar introduced the Julian calendar, fixing the year at 365.25 days and adding a leap year every 4 years. It replaced a messy lunar calendar and synchronized Rome's civil life with the solar year. The months January through December, many named after Roman gods and emperors, Mars, Juno, Augustus, Julius, are still in use. The Gregorian calendar replaced the Julian in 1582, but the structure remains. Without Caesar's reforms, our birthdays, elections, and holidays would slowly drift out of sync with the seasons. And yes, July is named after him. So technically, he still runs your summer plans. Sewers were another quiet revolution. In the 6th century BCE, King Tarquinius Priscus ordered the construction of the Cloaca Maxima, Rome's first great sewer. It drained marshlands between hills and turned a swamp into the Roman Forum. Over time, the sewer expanded, taking waste from baths, latrines, and homes directly into the Tiber. It was cleaned regularly, inspected by officials, and large enough in places for a man to walk through. Sanitation helped reduce disease in one of the most densely populated cities of the ancient world. Estimates suggest over 1 million residents during the imperial peak. Modern sewer systems still operate the same way: underground channels, gravity-fed flow, and outlet systems. The only difference, we flush. Roman law never really died. The 12 Tables, written in 450 BCE, created a standardized legal code accessible to all citizens. Later came the Corpus Juris Civilis, compiled under Emperor Justinian in the 6th century CE. This massive collection of legal thought became the blueprint for civil law systems, now used in over 150 countries. France, Germany, Japan, Latin America, all echo Roman principles. Contracts, torts, legal precedent, and citizenship rights. Even terms like habeas corpus or pro bono are direct Latin imports. Modern lawyers may argue with Apple terms of service instead of goat theft, but they're still operating in a world Rome built. Rome's postal system, the cursus publicus, was the empire's circulatory system. Set up by Augustus in the late 1st century BCE, it used relay stations every 8 to 12 miles, where couriers could switch horses and rest. With this system, messages could travel up to 80 kilometers per day. Officials had priority, and there were harsh penalties for interfering with state correspondence. It wasn't for civilians, more like an elite government mail service, but it laid the foundation for the concept of structured state-sponsored communication. Europe's medieval royal posts borrowed heavily from it. So did the 19th century Pony Express. And if you've ever tracked a FedEx package, you're using a descendant of the cursus publicus, just with satellites instead of horses. Public toilets in Rome were weirdly social. The latronia were long stone benches with holes, no partitions, and a steady stream of water flowing underneath. Sponges on sticks, rinsed in salt water, took the place of toilet paper. Entry was free, and the walls were often decorated with mosaics or graffiti, some political, some just crude. Larger facilities could seat up to 20 people at once, all shoulder to shoulder. But these weren't just places for hygiene, they were places for conversation. Senators, merchants, and laborers sat side by side, discussing politics, business, or gossip while doing their business. It was normal. In fact, the Roman Emperor Vespasian, who introduced a urine tax in the 1st century CE, was criticized for taxing waste. His reply? He held a coin to his nose and said, "Pecunia non elit, money doesn't stink." That phrase stuck for centuries, and so did the Roman model of public sanitation. Today, our toilets are private, the sponges are gone, but the basics remain. Water-based waste removal, publicly maintained infrastructure, and, in many places, YES taxes. Apartment buildings, or insulae, housed up to 80% of Rome's urban population. These multi-story structures, made of brick and concrete, had shops on the ground floor and cramped flats above. They were often poorly built. Fires were frequent, but the idea of vertical housing stuck. Today, cities around the world rely on high-density housing for growing populations. Modern apartments owe a debt to ancient Roman urban planning.